Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Sorry for the delay. It took a little bit of time to organize the pieces in a way I wanted to. And I kept thinking about how I wanted to talk about this one. Let me check my volume. Guys, I want to thank everyone who helps out the show. I'm going to give a special shout out to Jeff Koons. And I know I've mentioned Jeff Koons before, but I don't know what else to give him. So I give him accolades. And I do so because he's often on the ball on the UFO parts before I get to the UFO parts. And so he'd be like, hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. So this is a good one. This is an awesome one, actually. Luiz Elizando has been making the rounds. And in making the rounds, he's been releasing more information about his role in the project and about what he believes is going to be upcoming. From the standpoint of more information that's going to be released. And even more information on what he himself knew. Now, this is going to be a 420. So this is a blaze one if you got one. And I want people to be sufficiently loose as they listen to this. Now, I don't know about everyone else, but pot puts me in touch with my heart center. I think I've said that before. Like, my wife says, you have no feelings. That's not true at all. I'm just stuck with the reality that none of this shit is real. That most of the dramas that we encounter, the stuff that takes place on this planet, most of the stuff is not real. Like culture and these things are almost like figments of history. It's like you're running through a program. You pull them to these dramas, and oftentimes they are just that, dramas. From the standpoint of reality, the stuff isn't really real. But nevertheless, my point in this is saying, pot gets me more in line with those dramas. It gets me more in line with my heart center. And I do the 420s because I want people to detach from what they would consider to be their normal self, especially the political, cynical self that looks at these stories in the way they tend to look at these stories. I want this to be something that you ooze into and float and exist in that space, in this euphoric transcendence of non-judgment, just allowing it to just wash over you, even if you need to use that as a mental trick of what if. But what if in a way where you feel it, where you experience it, where it is a reality for that bit of moment in time to which my voice is accentuated in your ear. So let's start. Look at this. I love this picture. Right there. That's us. That's us. That's me sitting in this studio, which is just the room. Broadcasting. That's you doing whatever you're doing as you listen to me broadcast. That's somebody else in some other part of the world attending to whatever they're attending to. Just like you. Just like me. Human beings. Puttering about. Going about their way. I show that because I kind of want to make the point that this is reality. We're a ball hurling through space at fantastic speeds. And in hurling through space at fantastic speeds, we sit upon it at some point on it, and we putter about doing whatever we're doing. Whatever the agreements that we enter into, whatever the things, these cognitive things that we accrue around, whether state, government, identity, borders, culture, creed, this person did this, that person did that, being born into, raised up in, whatever those things are. The reality of it is, you're literally on a ball, hurling through space. The things that are real are the resources that are on the planet. You are real. The rest of the stuff are figments of your imagination. Now, I say that because I want to make it very plain that there is a difference between the things that you think versus the things that actually are. And there is no point in our time where humanity has just stopped and say, hey, let's do something different. We perpetuate the things that came before us. I hope you're sufficiently loose. Take a look at this. I love this video. That's euphoric. Who needs religion? That's fucking euphoric. Like, an ape at some point learned how to use a tool, and that ape who learned how to use a tool eventually built a rocket ship that sent something hurling into space that eventually was able to go far to another planet. 23 times the size of the planet to which that ape was standing on. And was able to look back at itself. Tiny, small, almost like a speck, seemingly insignificant, but significant enough to build a goddamn rocket ship to go into space. That's fucking amazing. Yes, the music makes it more epic and all this other stuff, but even the feat itself is fucking phenomenal. In all of this space, the odd dogma is that we're alone. Wouldn't that be more of a religious belief? We're a ball hurling through space, and with our limited level of technology, we're able to build something, send it far out in space from another planet, looking back at itself. Now, trillions and trillions of stars. There are more galaxies than grains of sand on the beaches of this planet, and all the beaches of this planet. And in all of that space, we know life grows in anything. There's life growing in volcanic pits. Isn't it an odd belief to not wonder if something is out there? And isn't it even a little bit odder to assume that nothing is out there? Even though that's what people do. It's so bizarre to me. This is the most epic question that faces this world, literally. The stuff that we engage in is not real. Yes, it has real repercussions because people take actions on those things, these dramas, these petty fucking dramas, these dramas that in some cases allow people to go hungry, in other cases allow people to grow without a house. Dramas. You have all the skill set to allow each and every person on this planet to have a decent life. Just don't do it. Look, I guess my point is, to me, it's an odd case that people don't ask that question of what's out there. And I'm tying this idea to, it's an odd case of not asking what's out there, to the mainstream media at this point has just presented this to the American public. So whether they ask or not, the question has been put forth as saying, this is confirmation. Something is coming to our shores. Now, mainstream media is doing this. So this is not the fringe. This is not, oh my God, people are making shit up. No, this is the United States government was studying this very specific thing. And the person who was the head of that project has come out and said, yes, we're being visited. Now, you can have a theory or a hypothesis that says this is a hoax. This guy's making it up. I don't necessarily know why he would make it up. But in this case, no, I do know why he would make it up. We'll talk about that afterwards. But either way, from a mainstream point of view and the way this is being regarded, this is real. This is confirmation. My fear here, and I'm terrified of this, I am one of those people who wanted this information out. And as this information started to become a reality, and as I started to get more involved in looking at the political theater, I am terrified. I'm terrified if it's a hoax. I am terrified if it is not. And in both cases, we have a corporate control political structure. What is the political structure? How is it going to deal with this? Did you think about that? Like, whether it's a hoax or whether it's real, it's kind of besides the point. Ultimately, if it's going to be acted on as reality, what is going to take place from the standpoint of politics and whose interests will be served as it's acted upon? Whether if it's real, are we reaching out to the cosmos with a fist? Are we reaching out to the cosmos with a fist? Luiz Elizando is going to give a little bit more information about this project. I have to be honest, he's winning me over because he thinks about this in similar ways that I think about this. He's asking questions and he's presenting this to the American public to make them ask certain questions of themselves. What does it mean to be a person? In this video, he asks, what does it mean to be a human being? Is it possible that there are things that are intelligent, that have certain needs and wants and desires and similar to us, but out in the cosmos, that maybe are not organized and arranged in the way that we're organized and arranged? He's asking these things in the video. This is the guy that ran the Black Project. And now I know that they're not being completely honest about the release of information for this project. What I mean by that is, all of the newspapers ran with this as if it was like, oh golly gee, we stumbled upon this thing that the government was doing. This release I've been planning for years. Grant Cameron knew about this release like a year ago. Part of the UFO community skepticism about this is A, all of the spooks that are surrounding Tom DeLonge in the release of this. And B, that they don't feel like they're being completely honest about the way they're going with this, in the sense of exactly the same thing that I just mentioned. They knew about this for years. Why are you pretending as if this all of a sudden was just stumbled upon? So, not to mention, they've lied to the UFO community for God knows how long. So the UFO community is extremely skeptical that the organizations that have lied to them for years have now coming out with, okay, here's the truth. But either way, Luiz Elizando is asking questions in a way that I like people to ask questions. And he's presenting this to the American public in the sense of, I understand that for the longest time you've been told this is nonsense, but you now have to challenge that particular idea because you being told that it was nonsense was propaganda, and the belief that it was nonsense was the nonsense. Now we need to challenge that, and we need to talk about what does it mean to be a person. I love it. But this terrifies me. And the reason why I said this terrifies me is because we have a corporate structure. At which point does softness or engaging things in intellectually has been prized? It's not. Force wins. We're a violent, primitive group of apes. And do I want that violent, primitive group of apes that work purely on this almost base instinct of corporate greed, where only a top 1% get the spoils? Do I want that interacting with something that's outside of our space or outside of our shores? No, I don't. That terrifies me. I don't know how that looks. As opposed to looking at this stuff in an honest way. Also, do you honestly believe that the things that the government tell you are true? Not so much. All right, the key point to this article is the craft that they showed in the videos. There are more videos to come. And not just more videos to come. They've analyzed, essentially, there are more ships. Like the pilot, it wasn't just one ship. And apparently there's more backstory to the video that hasn't necessarily been released yet. To the video that we did see, meaning that gimbal video and that Tic Tac video. Also, there's more. The investigations that these guys were doing the Pentagon have been engaged, or not the Pentagon, but this study, there were multiple studies that were involved in this, and they're releasing those studies for the first time, and they were studying some really weird and out there shit. So right here, in his presentation, let me read this out. You've got these advanced aerospace vehicles flying around. We don't know where they come from and what their intent is, possibly off-world even, said Dr. Putoff, physicist. In June, Hal Putoff made the first public presentation about the UFO study. He was the chief scientist for BASS, Bigelow Aerospace and Advanced Space Studies, the Las Vegas company which won a Pentagon contract to study UFOs and related mysteries. In his presentation, Putoff listed the subjects explored in dozens of scientific studies initiated by BASS. These studies were phenomenal. Like, so right here, where are they? Inertial electrostatic confinement fusion, advanced nuclear propulsion for manned deep space missions, pulsed high power microwave energy, space access. Let me just read some of them just for an overview of the topics. Let's see. Right here. Warp drive, invisibility, metamaterials, but the titles and the authors have not been released until now. They were studying warp drive, wormhole physics, anti-gravity, how to track hypersonic vehicles. They were into some weird shit. They're releasing this saying, yeah, this is the stuff that we were studying for the United States government. Putoff said his group had studied unknown materials recovered from the crash site. That's the other thing. So they're materials that people were discovering from crash sites. Now, to be fair, they don't know what those materials are, but they've been doing analysis on that stuff and they're going to release that information. Which means that's going to be some of the papers that get released. Also, the other thing was the pilots encountered more than just that UFO. In one of the other videos that I heard from a gentleman, he said that they were analyzing what each of the vehicles were doing, meaning they found that each vehicle had a different use. What's his name? Luiz Elizando also made a point in one of his other videos that, what did he say? How did he say it? It dropped from my head. It dropped from my head the moment I was about to say it. All right, I'm just going to let Luiz Elizondo say it for himself then, since I can't remember exactly what he said. I know he said there were more videos. I know he said there were more... I know what it was. The technology itself. He said, Luiz Elizondo made the point that the technology that's being used in the craft to do all of the stuff is not 1,000 years in advance of us. It's about 20 years. That we're extremely close to replicating the technology. Saying that for the most part, we replicate this on a somewhat of a microscopic scale now in some of the experiments that we do, and that fundamentally it's almost like a proof of concept. Also, the fact that they know that the technology exists, meaning they know that XYZ can do that particular thing, means it allows the scientists on Earth, the moment that you confirm and say, yes, this is real, and oh my God, look at what those crafts are doing. The scientists on Earth immediately say, hey, now it's just the thing of how. We don't necessarily have to go through this thing of whether it's true or not. All of us know it's true. All of us working on this one basic problem of how. The very fact that you acknowledge something exists allows the people, for the most part, to skip from that step of stumbling in the dark on whether or not it's real to, yes, it's real. How do we do it? He's making this point in the video that we're at the point of knowing how they're doing it. We're extremely close. And it's only a few years. That, to me, is even more terrifying. We spend half of our worth into killing each other. Think about that. The amount of money that we spend on the military could essentially clothe and feed the world. We don't do it that way. You probably could spend half of that clothing and feeding the world and do the other half for something else. I would imagine people wouldn't try to kill you and take your stuff if you clothed and fed them. I guess my point to this is we're violent thugs of a of a world. Um, do I want us having these type of technology and technological capabilities? Let's hear Luiz Elizando. I'm putting this video at the bottom so anybody can see the video itself. I'm only going to play certain parts. At least the parts I thought was the most interesting. This video is already 20 minutes long, so it's like 10 minutes too long. But Luiz Elizando himself talking about government projects. I'm not going to do the part where he's asking what it means to be a person. There is nothing wrong with that part. I just don't care to do that part. But yeah, just don't care to do that part. So let's let Luiz Elizando himself. Luiz Elizando was the one that was heading the Black Project, investigating UFOs. He's very explicit that he stays away from what's in the craft, only from the standpoint of what does it do, and how do we replicate what it's doing. So let's hear for himself. I hope this video is loud enough because it's low. I'm barely hearing it myself.
Now that you know a little bit about me and the program and whatnot. So let's start with the first question. And this one comes from, looks like Australia. Why did I decide to leave the department? Or you probably know it as ATIP. And what we learned during this time was nothing less than remarkable, in my opinion, and in the opinion of my colleagues. So, admittedly, when we first began our journey, we didn't know very much about the phenomena. We tried to keep it focused with Department of Defense equities and assets. So we had a very narrow scope of what we were trying to achieve. In fact, it was very narrow. It was just what was it and how did it work? And you know, sometimes when people ask, I often joke that before I took the job, I couldn't even spell UFO. So as a result of a lot of our earlier efforts, you don't know what you don't know. So we took a very broad approach to studying this topic. It was a bit like trying to use a fishing net to catch a fly. But over time, we were able to refine our methodologies and be able to refine our collection efforts to a point where we were far more effective in being able to figure out what this was. And so this enigma, this puzzle, we began to start putting the pieces together. And we did that by creating categories of observables that we knew were very, very unique and not consistent with anything else that we had in our inventory or anybody else's that we were aware of. So it's a lot like putting together a puzzle, right? And when you have a very large jigsaw puzzle you have to put together, you try to find commonalities. So your grandmother may have taught you when you have a jigsaw puzzle, start with the corners because there's only 4 corners and you can find those shapes very easily. So that would be one bin. The next bin might be find all the edges and put those in another bin, set those aside. And then another category, another, if you will, observable would be maybe putting all the similar colors together because they're probably part of the same scene. And you would put those aside and bin those together. And very much in the same manner, we did the same with our program. We had these 5 categories, these bins, these observables that were completely unique and different than everything else. And so I'll rehash this very quickly for you. You probably already know what those are. But the 5 categories, the first one is sudden and instantaneous acceleration. The second one is hypersonic velocities, not supersonic, hypersonic, very, very fast. The third is low observability. It's a bit of an oxymoron, but believe it or not, that is one of the observables. It's hard to see. It's hard to catch on radar. The fourth one is transmedium travel, the potential for an object to maneuver effortlessly, whether in atmosphere, low Earth orbit, and potentially even underwater, believe it or not. And then the last observable being positive lift, or in the vernacular, anti-gravity, I guess you could call it. And so that's how we approached this problem. That's how we started it. And as we began to collect information, things started to make sense. And so for the first time now, particularly in the last few years, we now have the mathematical formulas and the scientific modeling, and then also the observations, electro-optical data, etc., all finally coming together, pointing in the same direction. So originally, our focus was trying to figure out what these things were and how they worked. And unfortunately, I don't think we're really much closer to knowing what they are. But I'm very excited because we just about figured out how they work, in our opinion. It's very, very compelling. And I think in the last 2.5 years, more has been done in this area, at least from our perspective, the government perspective. I can't speak on behalf of the private side, but from our perspective, I think we have a much better understanding now than we did just even 2.5 years ago, to the point where we are actually able to replicate some of this physics in a laboratory. So when we started this project, a lot of folks were concerned that maybe we were dealing with science fiction. And as it turns out, we're dealing with science fact. And maybe what some people considered fringe science just turned out to be advanced physics and quantum theory. So we've come a long way. And I think that's exciting news. But there's always, of course, a challenge. And for us, the challenge was, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a little test rather than tell you. And there's no grade here, but just bear with me with it for this little exercise we're going to do. It'll only take a minute, I promise. I'm going to ask you, the audience.
He goes into this thing of parapsychology, and he's challenging the audience, making the point to the audience, when you think of this, when I say the word parapsychology, what do you think of? And trying to evoke this thing of, there's certain things your society has been put into you, and those things are not necessarily real, but those things are there nonetheless. They're inexplicable. They're not explicit. They're implicit. Say, for example, like playing cowboys and Indians. How many people play the cowboy or play the Indian? Not many. And to some degree, when you're playing this as a child and you're reacting or you're acting out an atrocity. Like you're acting out an atrocity committed by and wanting to play the role of the person who committed it. You know, it's like acting out the Nazis, exterminating the Jews. It's kind of bizarre, and yet it's something that people do. They don't think twice about it. What are people going to grow up thinking about the Russians? With this climate, if you're a child growing up in this climate, what do you think is being transmitted to the kids of this particular generation that's slowly eeping into the population, into the mindset of the population, of Hillary supporters, that howling animals about Russians? I'm saying that this stuff gets soaked into the population. And he's saying, look, when people say paranormal, ultimately what they're talking about is just advanced physics. But from their standpoint, they don't know any better. So from what's in them, the difficulty in trying to get through this and trying to get this research out are human beings. Ideas in their heads. Things that they can't pull themselves away from. That's the point. That's what he's trying to get across. The things that are put into you, those are the things that I need to get past, and those are the problems that I ran into. There were some cases where the senators was like, well, I don't like this because these things could be demons coming from another planet. Yet the religious thumpers, the Bible thumpers, didn't like what was coming out from the standpoint of the information. Like, you can imagine, generals, if I'm not mistaken, one of the things I read associated with this was some of the generals or some of the people who had access to this information didn't want this information coming out because they took it either through religious conviction, that it was wrong or bad, or that the public shouldn't see it. There's some studies on this that are not going to come out. They said those things will never see the light of day. But nevertheless, let's see. There's one more section of this that I want to show of his. This is towards the end of the video. The key point in that is we're at the point of being able to replicate this particular technology. The thing and the problem that we have in this is some of the effects look like paranormal activity. And so we need to get across to people that it's not paranormal activity, that it's science, and that you shouldn't necessarily be afraid of it. And we can see this in a laboratory setting. That's mind-blowing. He's just said that the way that UFOs function in our atmosphere, we're at the point of being able to replicate those actions, and that we've been replicating them to some degree in advanced labs. That's amazing. That's fucking amazing. I love that. I love that. Look, I have two parts of me. Parts of me say, yes, that's amazing. You know, hats off to the monkeys of the planet. We're primitive apes, but we're primitive apes with nuclear weapons and the capacity to go to other planets and kill others with those nuclear weapons. That's great. And then that's when I break down crying. Because the other part of me is, what do we use our nuclear weapons for in the first place? What are we going to use these weapons for? And how do we treat each other on the planet? And if how we treat each other on the planet is any idea on how we're going to treat others if we come across them, how should I feel about us getting this level of technology? I'm not optimistic. That's one more.
So question number 3, I think I beat that up to that. Question number 3, do I believe we are close to...
And by the way, I'm sorry this is so low. This is not my video. His video, even if you go to this video, is extremely low. So this is not a problem with my speakers, audio system, or anything like that. This is on them. I take no blame. Zero blame. I'm putting this all on him. A bitter tattletale. Alright. But this is the video. Let's keep going.
Understanding how they work. Yes. Yep. We are really, really close. In fact, I would submit to you, I don't think we are thousands of years or even centuries away. I think, based upon my experience, we might be 20 years out. It's no longer a theoretical question of if it's possible. We have already demonstrated the physics with the CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, and some of these other places where we know absolutely some of the physics behind what we are seeing is not only possible, we're replicating it. We're replicating it, though, at a very small level. But the question of whether or not can it be done, that's not a question anymore. It is being done right now. The real question is now, it's a technological challenge. It's a scalability issue. How do we replicate and control what we can see now in the laboratory in the very small scale, and make that useful to us in everyday life, in the scale we live in now. Question 4. What was the largest single credit for success in ATIP? The people. The people's it. Without the people that are in that organization, we wouldn't have anything. These are people that are working very hard day in, day out, doing their job, mostly without any credit at all. And when people find out what they do, sometimes they're ridiculed, despite having the evidence. So these are very brave men and women that serve their country and serve society, and in my opinion, serve the world. I think they're doing the world a service. These are true heroes. And I'll leave it at that. And last question. How important is Latin America in helping the world better understand the phenomena? Absolutely critical.
The Latin American question is fascinating to me. So there's an organization in Latin America that is, well, South America. I don't like to call it Latin America, but South America that has that does contacts. And I know that sounds fucking outlandish, but it's true. And they've been doing this apparently for like decades. They have organizations that go out and make some level of psychic contact. Now, here's the catch. What does contact look like? What does it look like? Assume for the moment that you don't know and don't understand all of the technologies and the techniques and the things that they know about interacting with other intelligences. Assume for the moment that there is science of thought that takes place in other societies of other planets. The reason I say that is I find it weird and odd that our education system is so narrow. Why wouldn't you teach kids meditations at a young age? Right? I mean, I want to calm them the fuck down. I want them to think a particular way. Meaning, I want them to be able to think, and I want them to be able to think in an organized way. That would be something I would nail home, but our education system is very narrow in the spectrum to which we allow or teach our kids. What if other societies aren't like that? I mean, we've assumed that thinking is purely an internal process. What if other societies didn't make that assumption? And what if those societies were working on science and technology in the mindset of thinking and extending thought with this capacity to reach out to other minds? And before you said that's insane, we ourselves, the United States government, was working on the same thing. So was the Russian government. Well, all I'm saying is, we assume that contact is a landing on the White House lawn and something coming out of a ship with all the drama and the television cameras waiting. Bated breath for the door to open and something to come out and start zapping people with ray guns so they can get it on television. They'd be like, oh my God, aliens are attacking us. Aliens are attacking us. What do we do? That's what they're waiting on. What if it's not like that? What if it's connecting to another person by thought? Maybe the person is in a bed. Maybe that person is somewhere else. Maybe that person looks at a craft and gets a thought in their head inside of this kind of thought impression. Maybe it's something else. Maybe the spectrum that we consider to be reality is just one sliver of a spectrum of reality, in which case they don't necessarily need to exist purely in this particular spectrum of reality, this waking state. What if they came to the conclusion that all of this is a figment of imagination, of active imagination, that allows us to perceive and interact with the world in this kind of odd, objective way where we're clinging in or hacking in to a kind of a reality stream that's programmed or plugged into our senses? What happens if you know that and can engage with that? I'm saying, what if the world in reality is not structured in the way that you function with on a daily basis, and that it's wider than that reality, and that what you function in on a daily basis in and of itself is somewhat of a dream state in which we pretend that this dollar that has no backing to it at all, and even if it was backed in gold, the gold that's backing it is somewhat, again, useless and doesn't mean anything, that's our reality. That people are willing to ignore climate science in order to make a buck, knowing full well that the planet is going to take a hit. An asteroid is going to hit the planet, but I got to get my last dollar before it does. I'm saying, what if what you consider to be reality is a very small section of a wider context? This planet that sits here, unmolested, untouched, all of these apes going about their way, getting their mani-pedis. I love mani-pedis. I'm one of them. Getting their massages. I love those too. I'm a sucker for pampering. Man enough to say it. Going about their way, going about their life, trying to earn their living, trying to pay for their kids, trying to pay for their bills and debt peonage. Anything can fly by. Anything. Something from some distant place that was blown away in some quirk of the galaxy, in some insignificant part where no intellect or consciousness has observed, flying through the cosmos for millions and millions and millions of years, unmolested, untouched, on a direct collision course to this little blue marble, nailing it, ripping away the veneer reality to which we all existed in this kind of anonymous, uncaring, amoral, unsympathetic way. The rock is real. The planet is real. The anguish that the people are going to experience are real. The money wasn't real. The states, the governments, the culture, none of that stuff was real. I'm trying to make this point between this idea of reality versus figments of our imagination that we organize ourselves around. Do you want to engage in something that's outside of our shores, dwelling in figments of imagination? Meaning, the majority of the world, I think like 80%, lives off $2 a day or less. That's pathetic and sad. That's utterly sad. And many of them don't have a pot to piss in, literally. Now, this is not because we don't have the capacity to make sure they do. This is not because we don't have the capacity to make sure people have a roof over their heads. When during the war, we was able to crank up magnificent technology and resources into making sure that all of these things were doled out to different parts in order to be blown up, destroyed, and killed, and all this other stuff. My point is, we have the technological means to make sure each and every person on this planet have access to the things that they need. We don't do it. We use a figment of our imagination to make the delineation between who should get something versus who shouldn't. And in same cases, we would have other people that have accrued billions of, you can say, labor credits, just sitting there, doing nothing, while the other guy's on the street starving. What figment of imagination do you use to allow, 6 people to own like 60% of the wealth in the world? What figment of imagination do you use to allow 96% of the resources to go to the top 1%? What do you use to convince the overwhelming majority of the public that one guy should walk into a room and take 95% of the spoils? And should you use that level of delusion to engage something off of our shores? When I say I'm terrified, that's what I'm talking about. This is a delusion, and we're using this delusion to make decisions on how we engage with something outside of our shores. And we're doing so under this idea of threat, shaking a fist of the cosmos. I find this to be terrifying. I find this to be utterly terrifying, while at the same token, excited that it's being brought up and talked about. Let's see. Redneckonomics. Gonna grab some munchies for this one. I'm getting a real Art Bell vibe from this. Oh, yes, good. I'm in good company. Balthazar, the UFO project more believable than Hillary Rodham Clinton. What if advanced alien race is all Alex Jones's doom? Oh, God, please don't. What if the alien races are also existing in a series of unreality? Oh, that would be terrifying. That would be utterly terrifying. These are some of your best shows. Thanks. Have you read any of Ingo Swann's writings? Liam Hisk. Yes, I have. Ingo Swann, if I'm not mistaken, I might have even done a show on Ingo Swann. For those who don't know, Ingo Swann was part of the remote viewing program for the United States government. The United States government heard that the Russian government was working in psionics, psychological technology. This idea of like mental weapons, like men at stare goats, that type of stuff. The psychological studies or psi studies. The U.S. government thought this was nonsense, but at the same token, it was a Cold War. They're doing something. We need to figure out if there's anything to it. Ingo Swann was their man, and Ingo Swann blew them the fuck away. He blew them away. Because what Ingo Swann was able to demonstrate was, yes, he can get whatever information that he wants from the goddamn ether. No, there was nothing that you could do to prevent him from getting that information, even if you put Ingo Swann in a vat underground with, barbed wire or something around him in order to try to prevent signals from coming out. Ingo could still get the information. It was amazing. Now, they came up with what they call remote viewing, scientific remote viewing. This was essentially giving scientific rigor to psychic work. With the added bonus that you could teach it. I mean, granted, there were some people better than others, but for the most part, anybody could do it. they found that this was a faculty in all human beings, that all human beings to some degree had a psi component in the way that they can interact with this kind of pull information from essentially ether. Ingalls Swan just so happened to be amazing at it. Ingalls Swan gets even more interesting because he goes into this idea of reality boxes and the way people process reality. Some of his books are extremely complicated to read. I have one of them. I thought it was somewhat complicated to read. Well, let me say dry. Maybe dry is the better word for it. And even him giving his speeches, he can be a little bit dry. But fucking fascinating, because you're getting this understanding of the world from a psychic, for all intents and purposes, but a real psychic, not a bullshit one, like a real one. He was one of the guys who was telling there were rings on Saturn or on Jupiter before anybody even was able to get to Jupiter. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. One of the most interesting parts, though, for Ingalls Swan's writing, the thing that makes his reading even that much more interesting, was a story he told about Axelrod. I might have told this one before. This is awesome. So, Ingo said while he was doing these studies with the U.S. government, and this is real, by the way. There's no lying about it. This is real. The remote viewing project for the United States government is real. You can talk to some of the guys who are out there. Joe McNoggle, whatever his name. He, if I'm not mistaken, works now at the remote. What is his name? My brain is foggy. Bob Monroe works at his institute in Virginia. He, again, world-class remote viewer. The man is amazing. He works for private enterprise now, doing remote viewing for stuff dealing with private interests. So, that being said, Ingalls Swan gets a message. And as they're doing the protocols and as they're doing these experiments, the message is from a guy, this shady character, by the name of Axelrod. Axelrod talks to him and essentially is a spook. He will be on Section 31 from Star Trek. And Axelrod, in this kind of secret meeting, tells him, when you get your accuracy up to, I forget the number, like 90%, put a number in your desk, we'll know, and you'll be contacted. Like, this is some spy shit. This is fucking amazing. So he takes this. He said, whatever. I don't think he pays much mind to it. But as his accuracy improves, and as they get this more down pat, he gets a message. He writes it in his desk, like Axelrod says, and he's contacted. Now, he's in a supermarket or in a store, and Axelrod comes up near him, and Axelrod tells him, he says, don't move. Don't act suspicious. And I may be fucking up parts of the story, but in a nutshell, this is what happens. He says, look around in the store. Mentally, to some degree, look around in the store. Is there anybody in the store that feels off to you? And so he does this, and he sees this gorgeous, drop-dead, gorgeous woman in the store. And he says he immediately gets this pink. This something hits him, and he immediately realizes that woman is different than everybody else in the store. Axelrod tells him yes. Axelrod confirms what he's thinking. But Axelrod is kind of making the point to him, don't do anything about this. Let it be. And essentially kind of get across to him that person is not human. That is something else. Now, this gets fucking amazing, because now we're talking about spies, we're talking about psychic spies, we're talking about fucking aliens in grocery stores. Oh, this is awesome. Now, Axelrod takes Ingo even to the point of like a craft or something. So Ingo is in this, like, wrapped into this spy stuff where he's interacting with this shady guy named Axelrod. Axelrod is not his real name. Where he's seeing beings and stuff like that. But Axelrod wanted to use Ingo for his own level of experimentation and for his own deeds. And showing him this stuff was, I guess, in some way, getting Ingo wrapped into this process. Ingalls Swan is amazing, man. He really is. He's fucking phenomenal. It's like aliens in grocery stores. Like, holy shit. Nevertheless, it's fucking amazing. No, it's not David Axelrod. David Axelrod. It's not David Axelrod. Yeah, it's fucking phenomenal. Didn't James Randi prove that guy that Jamal was talking about is full of shit? No, he did not. Fuck no. What's his name? Is not even alive. He's not even alive. Earth is around. Let's see. Imagine that day Jamal discovers Scientology. Oh God, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Brom, look up Stanford Research Institute. Look up Pear Labs. Pear Labs. Both of these places have been doing studies into psi research and psi phenomena. I'm trying to think of who else. UVA. Well, I don't know if the guy's still there, but the guy who used to work at UVA, who was the head of the psychology department, was doing studies in the past life of children, published studies. I'm trying to think of the other ones, but people have delved into this. And if you notice, in this video, Luiz Elizando himself deals with the problems associated with the people when they say parapsychology. Because in their heads, oh, you mean something that's not real. He said, no, I'm talking about physics that doesn't necessarily apply or go by your normal way of looking at the world. He said that was one of the hardest things. Hal Puthoff knows. Yeah, Hal Puthoff is fucking phenomenal. I know they have Jamal. From what I've seen, they haven't come up with any conclusive as of yet. Well, it depends on what you mean with conclusive. I mean, look, at some point, there is no level of proof that is going to get across to skeptics. Because the phenomena that they're dealing with is not... You're talking about mental phenomena. They're not making claims that you can move a mountain. What their claim is intention affects reality. Now, I would say that somewhat as a flat fact if you're looking at the double slit experiments. The double slit experiments are conclusive on this. It's unequivocal. People like to say, oh, that's a red herring. It's not a red herring. You just don't like the results of the experiment. If you look at the world, it affects the world. Not looking at it, also to some degree, leaves it in this kind of quantum foam. If a tree falls in a forest, and nobody hears it, does it actually fall in the forest? Depends on whether or not you call quantum foam a tree falling in the forest. Bernie Sanders is a flat earther. Discuss, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong, Jay. That's wrong. That's wrong. I'm not going to assume that we have mechanical technology that we don't have, JT. Hey, look, I'm not saying... I am more skeptical than maybe what I come across. In fact, my skepticism to some degree comes across because I am somewhat one of the hopeful people on this. I am the hippie standing on the roof of the tallest building, waving a flag saying, welcome nerd! That's me. That's me. That's the guy. I'm the guy who would say, it would be pretty cool to be abducted just to see if the shit was real. That's me. I'm willing to take the screaming at the top of my lungs like, oh my God, don't put it in my ass. Just to know if it's real. I'm one of those people. I don't like to believe. I like to know. There's a difference in those things. Even if the only person to know is me, I want to fucking know. I say that to say my skepticism is somewhat powered by me knowing that I'm that way. I also know that there are certain things as spoofs or mind tricks that can be played on the public. If you're going to do a lie, make sure the lie is grand and big. And hey, what bigger lie than this shit is real? I'm just saying, I don't know. I take it as, is it possible that the United States government had certain technology that's 20 or 30 years ahead of the rest of the public? Yeah, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? They're black ops projects. They spend billions of dollars on black ops projects. The president himself can have his own black ops. So it doesn't necessarily shock me that there may be some fucking fantastic, phenomenal craft that Luiz Elizando knows nothing about. It's possible. It's very possible. It's possible that they decided to bring this craft out and say there's something else coming to our shores that we need to figure out what it is. And in the process of doing that, oh, by the way, we need to spend more money. And we need to invest in more weapon systems, and more things that can track, and more things that can do stuff. Hey, maybe even in space. Maybe we need to put weapons in space in order to police our space, because we can't have stuff coming to our shores that we don't know what it is. We don't like no fucking immigrants, whether they're coming from Mexico or whether they're coming from some other galaxy. I'm terrified of the reality of this. I really am. I really am. It'd be awesome if the craft was really a Gundam. Oh God, no, it wouldn't. That would not be awesome. Or Order of Chaos. Aliens are mathematical certainty. Yeah, they are. I'm shocked that the question is asked. Like, to me, it seems to be a foregone conclusion that there is something else out there. So the question becomes, do they have the capacity to get here? And I would like to think, yes. It is an arrogant prospect to say that it is impossible to get here. That is profoundly arrogant for somebody with, 100 years of science behind their backs. But arrogance we have in spades. Jean-Luc Picard being flung out into the cosmos with the board, being forced on his knee to beg to Q, please save me. Our arrogance got us in trouble. Yeah. Liam Hisk. I think most of his work was published in the 80s or 90s. He talks about what you mentioned, written in Past Life Memories. The Past Life Memories thing is fascinating too. What is scary that teens for Trump is a real thing, most likely for all the wrong reasons too. That is kind of scary, right? Why are you going to have teens backing the establishment choice? It's supposed to be fucking rebelling. And Donald Trump is not rebellion. Whatever you want to call him, he's not rebellion. How fucking pathetic that there was no real left wing. It's like when you take power, you got to hit the shit out the park, especially if you're at the left. Whatever you do, you need to knock that shit out the park to such a degree, go so big and so grand that now let the public die down. Like, Occupy Wall Street should have been the catalyst for real change. It shouldn't have been Obama. It should have been Sanders. Yeah, it should have been Sanders. Tell Jamal to read my comment. He thinks I'm crazy. I don't think you're crazy. Hey, you, what are you talking about? For the record, I'm a remote viewing believer. Once you remote view, you would never go back. Yeah, agreed. But I don't think you're crazy. I have like a few years ago when I was doing the UFO thing, I had like maybe 30, 40 remote viewing sessions like that I put on Facebook with a notation behind it. I know people thought I was fucking nuts, but I was putting it on Facebook so everybody could see the notations, the documents, and everything else. I was okay at it. I had maybe a 70% hit record, but I could never tell what I was looking at. I could only describe it. It's the difference. And I was always slightly off in my thing. You're only going to get hit in the head with CIA if you try to shut any of it down. Holy cannabis oil. Rednecks for minority rights. I have no idea what that means. Bob Remersive. Remote viewing would never be allowed. It could put the porn industry out of business. Why would remote viewing put the porn industry out of business? Remote viewing has a bad name because it's not actually viewing per se. There may be some people who are really good at it to the point of viewing. Me, it was always just awareness. It was always like pretend for the moment that you weren't walking about in physical matter reality. Pretend for the moment. Just pretend. Assume the perspective that what you can see, what you can taste, what you can hear and feel, that those things are not things that are happening to you in the same way that you experience it of walking about in daily physical matter reality life, but that you don't have a body at all. Assume for the moment that you are a brain sitting in a jar, and that as a brain sitting in a jar, there are tubes that are plugged into the various parts of your brain, and those tubes are replicating taste, sound, sight, touch. And for sight, it's program, it's giving you a program of something that you can look through that looks like your physical matter reality. And for touch, anytime you bump into something in the program, you get this feeling from the standpoint of your brain. Your waking and sleeping reality, for the most part, is a brain in a jar with electrodes. In what way would your reality be tangibly different in this scenario? And my answer to that is, in no way. You wouldn't know any difference. Everything that you see, hear, touch, these things are just inputs. And these inputs, for the most part, are being interpreted by your consciousness. It is very possible that there is no there per se. All of this could be a figment of your imagination, a trick of mind. Some kind of scenario or some kind of game that you're plugged into. You would have no way to know the difference. You're born into a system. You die in a system. And from the time that you're born and educated, you accept that system because pain sucks. And there are things that you get infatuated with within the drama itself. You don't really question why you're in the drama, how you're in the drama, how does this work, why is reality constructed in this way. You don't do that because, for the most part, it's hard to figure that out. And if you spent your entire time doing that, you wouldn't be able to eat. You wouldn't have anywhere to put over your head. At the very least, you're forced to engage in the game space because pain sucks. Pain sucks. All I'm saying is we have no idea what this is. And pretending as if we do is somewhat lying to yourself. Scientists who go with this idea that only physics is real, that's a religious belief. Scientists are human beings. Yes, they can have religious beliefs, especially when their thing is physics. And it's like, hey, isn't it fucking convenient if you're going to say physics? That's all there is. Physical is all there is. But even when we're talking about non-physical, what does that mean? Anything that's not necessarily within this reality frame to us would be non-physical. Look, all I'm saying is we don't know what this is. And there's all sorts of things that this could be. If Matter falls in a farce, was it Russia? Oh God, I love that one. I love that one. If Matter falls in a forest, did Russia do it? Did Russia do it? Liam Hisk, it's a projection, yes. But you can't change a projection without finding the projector and making changes there. That's true. We don't know what the projector is. Like, it's very possible that everything within a reality frame that you experience are just figments of your own imagination, that none of it is ultimately real. That you could be something sitting in a jar somewhere or sitting in a booth somewhere and going through some kind of classroom in which you have a world of your own construction, engaging in dramas of your own creation. In which case, everything looks real and everything feels real and everything else, and for all intents and purposes, it all is real in a sense that whatever you interact with is real. Whether it's in your imagination or whether it's in physical reality, all of it is real. You engage, you have feelings, you had emotions, there were things that happened to you, there were things that didn't happen. Yes, it's all real. All of the dramas and all of the history that created, all of it could be figments of our imagination purely for the sake of whatever this is for. I have no clue. My difficulty is functioning without having a clue. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It is far easier to just say, I believe X. And I think some people just take the easy way out and saying, I believe X, as opposed to, I have no clue. I have no idea. The projector is the mind. Liam Hisk, no. I know. I'm saying you don't know if the projector is the mind, meaning I'm projecting something, or see, this is a weird conversation. Well, it's getting into a weird conversation. Assume for the moment when I would have lucid dream states, part of the oddity of the lucid dream state is I am aware, perfectly aware. I'm awake. My fingers and toes. I can move. I can do all this stuff. And yet I know I have a body somewhere else. That's pretty heady. I know there's a body somewhere else. It's not up, down, left, right. It's not any of this reality space. But there's a body somewhere where I am not right now. There's a body somewhere. And yet I can have all of these dramas and everything else wherever I am in this space. In some cases, there were other things in the space. In some cases, there weren't. I'm just making the point that that's a pretty heady thing. Pretend for the moment that that's not abnormal from the standpoint of a larger reality context. That if we assume that this is the space to which we exist, and when we die out, we're just kind of gone, flicker into the night in a sense. But how do you know that's not inverted? Like, how do you know that it's not the other way around? That this other space, or that there is some other space to which we exist, and the projection for the most part is this. Gotta be honest, if it was me and I was constructing a reality and I needed a society to be somewhat sane and civil, how do I create a society that's sane and civil? How do I do it? Like, think about it for the moment. Your kids are going to be raised in whatever structure and society you have. They're going to be a section of the society that's rebellious. There's going to be section that's docile, and there's going to be section that pushes back against that rebellion. And whatever that is, you're always going to end up with that particular spectrum. How do I get a sane society? One of the problems is one side is not necessarily going to fully understand the other side because they're not going to live in their shoes. How do you get the rich fuck that was born and raised into wealth, that believes that he's above everyone else, only because he's born and raised in that way, he was nurtured in that way. And if he was nurtured and raised into a different society, he would have a different perspective on events. How do I change his point of view without him having the perspective? What if your society comes up with a technological solution for doing that? As is, hey, we just need to spoof the signals of a person's brain, and in spoofing the signals, we can program in whatever the hell we want to program in. In that case, the projector is not fully the mind. The projector is the thing that's dumped into the mind, or the thing that's spoofing the signal. I don't know, Liam. I guess that's my point. I can think of all sorts of reasons and ways of getting and coming up with why a society would do something like that, why a society would project those things. Hell, I don't even know if anybody is here other than myself. I am open to all of those questions because I have no idea what those things are. No clue. Trudy, you mean future fraud proceeds potential? What? Future fraud proceeds potential. Of course, what did Trudy say? Trudy's here? What's happening, Trudy? If you dropped a house on Hillary, she'd charge you for the future earnings potential. Oh, God, that's hilarious. That's completely hilarious. So, Flight of the Navigator, Abduction of the Fire of the Sky, Abduction. I've heard Flight of the Navigator. That's, what's that guy's name? He's chubby, right? And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I can't think of his name. Flight of the Navigator, if I'm not mistaken. Fire in the Sky. Yeah, that was a good one. Travis Walton's fascinating. My rescue dog is a remote viewer, and he's watching you now, JT. I like how Ishwar Puri put it. We experience loneliness because the creator is lonely. No peer, parent, no partner. Still, creator made a wealth of experience. Rob Pouquet Ray. That's interesting. The creator. Thanks, enjoyed your perspective, Liam Hiss. Thank you, Liam. I agree with you. I do think, to some degree, we're a projector. I guess my feeling is I don't know that, which is why I'm always stuck in this thing of not knowing. My perspective is I don't know. Unfortunately, I know that's not really a good perspective, or not really a perspective, but it is a perspective. My thought is, when we dream, we project all sorts of stuff. Like, you walk outside, you see the stars, you talk to your partner. Maybe you get into an argument with your partner. You get in a car, you drive down the street, you hit a cat. You're freaked out because you hit a cat. You're like, God damn it, I hit a cat. You feel horrible about it. You get back in your car, you get home, you wash your car, you wash the blood off you, you feel bad, you take a nap, and you wake up. All of that could have taken place within the span of a few moments. And in the same place, you experience all of the feelings associated with that, just like you would have experienced in your real reality. You looked up at the stars and you created a cosmos. You hit a cat, you created that experience, and none of it was real. All of it was real. And you wake up and you immediately say, oh, that wasn't real at all. But everything that I experienced here is real and I'm alive and etc., etc., etc. How do you know? Like, how do you go through something like that where you've literally created reality and you wake up in a different reality and you say that other reality was just bump, but this reality is where it's at? How do you know? How do you know? And Liam Hiss, to back up your point for the moment, yeah, in that moment, you're a projector. Your mind is projecting all of it. I guess my interesting question is, where's the mind in this case? Where is it projecting it from? It's not going to be in and projecting. Anything that is projecting from has to be outside of this reality frame. Not to mention, where is it? What is it? And I know that question doesn't necessarily, it may not even apply. When I'm saying what, I am in a physical matter reality frame in a body, encased in somewhat of a body. And in being encased in that body, this body is an avatar in this particular reality frame. Great. What is a reality frame that's projecting this experience? This is fucking fascinating, man. It's utterly fascinating. One time when I went to sleep, my dog turned into a horse. I was so confused when I woke up. He was still a dog. I love that, right? Because it's when you can't tell the difference. It's fundamentally the same. I had this dream that I was being abducted. And you talking about something that scared the shit out of me. Usually, I am a beast in my dreams. I'm usually scared of nothing in my dreams. I was a complete pussy in that dream. I was so much of a pussy in that dream. When I woke up, I was ashamed at my behavior. Think about that. Ashamed about being terrified in a dream state. But it was true nonetheless. I was in this phase where I was doing these meditations and everything else, trying to make contact, because again, I want to know if it's real. And whether it works or not, it's kind of besides the point. Is it real? I want to know. And I want to take people on their own terms in order to figure it out. If I accept it from this thing of, oh, this is bullshit, then you would never know. You would always say, oh, dude, that's bullshit. There's nothing there. It's like, how do you know there's nothing there? You've never actually went through the process that you're talking about. So fine, take them at their terms. Now, most of it turns out to be bullshit. But every so often you hit upon something like, oh my God, I didn't know that was real. So I was trying some of the meditative techniques. And I started getting weird phenomena. That's the first point. And one of the weird phenomena were these dream states. So in this particular dream state, I am laying down in bed. I hear something upstairs. I can't tell that I'm in a dream state. That's the part that's freaky in this. So Trudy, I'm kind of piggybacking what you're saying, where my dog was a horse, and I was so confused that my dog was a horse until I woke up, and then I realized it was a dream. It was like you couldn't make the distinction between the real world and the dream world, because for the most part they were almost indistinguishable. And in this case, the same thing. Laying in bed, my wife is laying beside me. Everything looks exactly the same. There is no distinction here between what's real and what's not. It looks the same. I hear something upstairs. And I get up to go check. And there's a weird phenomena that's associated with either dream states or when you're out of like non-waking states. Almost like a felt sense. Like you know something is true. But you know something is true in a deep down way that you know something is true, even though you don't have the information itself to give you that the information is true. This is just for the state itself. And this is not necessarily for something outside of the state. But out non-conscious in states, it's like a felt sense, like a sixth sense is there. And I'm feeling weird, and I'm like, there's something upstairs. I'm slightly weirded out by this. I get up to walk upstairs, and I grab the door. Now that's the first weird part, because we never had the door shut. But I grab the door, and as I get to the door, I'm frozen. I can't move. And I fall back to the bed, And my wife said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I can't move. I'm frozen." And I hear something coming down the stairs. And in that moment, I panic. Like panic at a level that you didn't even know that you could panic. And then from that level, 1,000 times on top of that, panic, like unabashed, full retarded, like losing your mind in a way that you don't care if anybody is there, if anybody is watching. You are just flipping out. That level of panic. I was utterly terrified. Now, from that point on, I fall back to the bed, and I hear something walk down the stairs, and I yell in my head, "Stop!" Because at that point, I know what's taking place. I wake up, and I'm like, God, that was embarrassing. I was like, God, that was embarrassing. It was so fucking embarrassing. Now, I know, right? Help me, Tom Cruise. It was like, Tom Cruise, help me, get me out of this. That happened once again, but the second time around, I was less of a punk, and I was able to engage. But it was weird. No, it wasn't sleep paralysis. I'm not bothered by sleep paralysis. In fact, usually I try to get to the point of sleep paralysis because that's the jumping off point for OBs. So that wasn't what it was. It was a dream. So I once dreamt that I died in my dream, was stuck in that dream for eternity. I was never so relieved to awake. I wouldn't want to have any type of consciousness for eternity. I don't want to have any type of nothingness for eternity. Fuck no, that would suck. I like the word creator. I don't know if I like the word creator. I don't like the connotations. Holes, y'all went all down. Get it? Jimmy Dort? Never mind. I don't know what that means. Is there a here? Is there a here? I don't know what that means. I don't want to listen to myself for all eternity. Did you read the actual letters, the words, or did you just know what the paragraph said? I was talking to number 5. Oh, I see. Yeah, look, some people do have like night terrors, or some people do have like these dreams that they're mistaken for abductions, or even OBEs. Like some of the scenarios that they talk about when they're talking about abductions, it sounds like an OBE. As somebody who's gone through the OBE thing, as a consciousness waking OBE, what they're talking about sounds like an OBE. Now, I'm not saying that the experience wasn't real. I'm just saying that it wasn't necessarily physical. And if they didn't necessarily have any experience with OBEs, they may think that they were still in the physical when they weren't. Some of this stuff just gets weird. Did you care before you were born? Why did you think you would care if you died? Did you care before you were born? It depends on who you ask. How would you know you were dead? Oh, I love that question. My nightmare is discussing 2016 My nightmare is discussing 2016 for eternity. Holy cannabis oil, Jamal, you should explain the OBE and other experiences that you've had. I've explained those things endlessly, but you're right. I have a lot of new people, and they may not have heard of them. I may do videos of them by themselves. What time is it? It's 3:20. I may do another 4:20. That would be a whole video by itself. The OBE stuff, man, is fucking fascinating. It's utterly fascinating. Some of the outer body experience, my guess, is called outer body experience. Don't mess with that stuff. You might awaken in a parallel universe where things did not go well. Nuclear apocalypse, South winning the Civil War, etc. Hillary Clinton winning 2016. That's what you missed, Bob. That's what you missed. You missed that joke. It was there for you. You missed it, Bob. You completely missed it. Too bad, Bob. Too bad. You missed it, buddy. You was almost there. Death is just like before you were born. Yeah, however you take it. I mean, whether that's oblivion or whether that's something else. Yeah. Trudy, you're made of sparks, so you don't really die. My list of fucked up dreams is humongous, but that sleep paralysis episode for me was something else. Yeah, sleep paralysis can be weird if you don't know what it is. I mean, sometimes people get auditory hallucinations. When people are trying to do OBEs and they're trying to do conscious OBEs, one of the things you have to go through is this idea of this kind of sleep paralysis state, especially if you don't want to use a break in consciousness. When I was trying to do it, I didn't want to have a break in consciousness because my thought was, if you have a break in consciousness, you can wipe it off as a dream, even if it was something that was pretty profound. Some people get weird hallucinations. Like I know for myself, I was getting these massive sounds, like these. It felt like static in your ears, and at some point, the static sounded like it was shaping itself into a voice. Now, for the most part, there are others who get where it is a voice. There are other people who have knocking on the door. They hear like somebody banging on the door or somebody like screaming for help. Like this other stuff, anything to pull them out of the state so they don't necessarily go through with it. These are figments of their imagination, almost like a manifestation of their fears, trying to prevent them from going through the process. Because ultimately, it is akin to some degree to death. And depending on those things that the person is harboring, waking state is the only state. Anything else, you could end up with, weird scenarios. Well, their fears come and eat them when they're trying to do stuff like this. It's like all of the horror novels and the scary movies all kind of aggregate into one main force in order to prevent them from moving forward in these type of odd paranormal activities. Yeah, it is weird. It is weird. It was a feeling of presence that dreaded for me. Yeah. I interpret it as an old man creeping towards me, but the dream was crazy, messed with my heart badly. Yeah, I mean, it's the most vulnerable aspect of us. You know what I mean? Like, it's not you when you're awake puttering about. It's you when you're most defenseless and you're out of your element with something's here. And I don't know what it is. And it's not physical in the way that I know things to be physical. Something is coming to get me. That's an odd feeling. I used to have stuff like that when I was a kid. When I started getting into weird topics, that kind of went away. The fear of it went away. Let me say it that way. Scared in the moment, not scared in the abstract. And I gotta be honest, I became somewhat of a badass in my dream states. One of my I remember one time, one of the dreams I had, my wife and I, we were in our room, a portal or something open at the bottom of the bed, and we were being pulled in, and my wife was freaking out, like she was losing her shit like she would in real life, and me being a badass, I was like calming her down, and I was like standing here like, the hair that I don't have blowing in the breeze or not blowing in the breeze, and as we were being pulled, I'm in my like PJs or my shorts, not PJs, but I'm in my pajama shorts, and I have my hand holding her back, and I'm calming her down. I'm trying to calm her down, like holding back the night, like Tom Cruise. So epic. Now, I was in that moment, I was trying to calm her down, while at the same token, like being aggressive to anything that's trying to take us. It was awesome. You're not take us. Leave this place. Leave this place. It left this place. There was nobody getting anal probed that night. Now, too bad my wife has no memory of that because she wasn't there. This was all in my head. And but again, I guess my point is saying that is, yeah, some of that stuff is terrifying. Other times you're badass. It's in your head. Jamal is Fabio, hair blowing in the breeze. No, I said the opposite. I said with no hair to blow in the breeze. Thanos was get his ass whooped in my dream. I'm willing to admit that it was just a common phenomenal occurrence thing, but being in the moment too. Oh fuck yeah, it's weird. It's strange. I'm agreeing with you. I used to have this thing when I was a kid. I've mentioned this before, where I'm laying in bed, wide awake, and something would walk in the room, presence, and sit on my bed. This wasn't taking place when I was asleep. I wasn't paralyzed. I could move just fine. Something would come into my room, sit on my bed. Me, being an 8-year-old, I did what any 8-year-old would do, and I put my head under the cover, and I thought to myself, if it can't see me, it can't murder me. Now, this is stupid as all hell, but it's 8-year-old logic. So I put my head under the cover. I wasn't paralyzed at all. I was perfectly aware of what was taking place. I just was freaked out by it. It would happen over and over and over again. I started thinking of myself in a bubble, and I started to take all of my fears and everything that I was terrified of and dump it into the bubble itself. So it was almost like this bubble of white light where I would dump stuff into. In my head, that was my way of trying to hold back whatever was there. It was all I got. It was all I knew to do. I didn't know what the fuck it was. I didn't know what was coming in. I knew it was happening quite often. Nothing, never hurt me, never touched me or anything like that. It did get to the point where it felt like my covers were being pulled. But my reaction was to dump the ball of light thing. At one point, I stopped and was like, will you stop it? You cut that shit out. You're scaring me. At that point, he stopped. But up until that point, he was scaring the shit out of me. I don't think I was that strong in saying cut the shit out. I think it was more like, could you please stop this? You're freaking me out. I've always kept weird hours, even in my teens. I've always been a sleepwalker and tend to eat when I'm doing. That's funny. I'll wake up and there's cereal all over the floor. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Damn, Skippy. Everyone knows that blankets are force fields. Yeah, I know. Blankets are force fields against monsters, at least when you're a kid. Isn't it amazing how that just seems natural? It's like, oh God, something's in the room. Fuck. It can't hurt me if I'm under my covers. It can't hurt me if I'm under my covers. Oh, that's fucking hilarious that everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. We were living in a CIA simulation. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Trudy, but Mrs. Thomas is a very patient and understanding woman. Uh-oh, what did Trudy say? What did Trudy say? What did Trudy say? Somebody remarked while you were gone that you were telling Miss Thomas this is going to be a quick one. Oh, God. So, Miss Thomas, at this point, she knows that my understanding of time is not the greatest thing in the world. Miss Thomas is also slightly upset with me because I want to go to see Julian Assange. And I want to take a mini trip to London. And Miss Thomas does not want me to take a mini trip to London. And in doing so, she's slightly annoyed. So she was in bed early. I want to cover the Julian Assange thing. So this is why I fucks with you, Jamal. Dude, you never sleep. Shannon's in the bed. Well, I slept all day. I slept most of the day. I'm an insomniac, man. And sometimes the medication I take fucks with my sleeping schedule. Like, it keeps me awake. So, you already have somebody who's an insomniac, and then you add something else that makes the person even more of an insomniac. Yeah, it's fine. My thinking is I get stuff done while I'm awake. So my mind went to sex when you said that, Jamal. When I said what? What did I say? What did I say? Dirty bird. I don't know what I said though. Oh, you mean for Julian? Going to London for Julian. Oh, you talking about? Oh, you mean no? That doesn't keep you awake. I don't think that keeps you awake. At least I don't know. Dirty bird, Trudy. I like it. I like your perverse nature. I love it. I think more people should be perverts. might just be a natural thing, night owl. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Oh, this is going to be a quick one. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. But hey, wouldn't that mean implicit stamina is like, this is going to be a quick one, and 3 hours later still plugging away. Just 5 more minutes. Like, no, you bastard, get away. Get away. Get away from me. My vagina can't take it. It's going to fall apart. Yeah. She's like, get terrified of saying there was going to be a quick one. It's like, I'm putting up what do they call those things? A restraining order for abuse to my vagina. Speaking of dreams. You know what's funny? Sting, I remember Sting used to be, do you remember Sting used to be in the news for doing tantric sex? And saying that he could have sex for like 24 hours or something, some weird number. Where it was like, he was having sex for like some ungodly amount of time. It was like, what the fuck? What do you mean you're having sex for that long? And you find out it's like tantric sex. Maybe I'm a caveman on this. Maybe I'm a caveman. Is that what you're trying to accomplish? Like, what are you trying to accomplish when you're having sex that long? And I know it's not like in and out, like plugging away sex. You know, it's not porn star legs in the air and, you know, just flipping the person. It's not like that. It's more like, you know, you're sitting there kind of in this, you know, there's chimes going off in the background, and you're like gazing to her eyes, and you're holding her hand, and you're touching her, like that type of stuff. Is that what she wants? Is that what you want? It's like, come on, what are you trying to accomplish? My goal, my complete and utter goal, and some may say you're too goal oriented. Fair enough. I'll take that. But my goal, in order for sex to be enjoyable, is for her to get off. I want her to have an orgasm. Otherwise, I didn't accomplish my job, and I don't enjoy myself as much. That said, the 20-hour thing just seems utterly pointless. It just seems pointless. After 30 minutes, unless there are drugs involved, it should be both finish this race as quickly as possible. You know what's funny? Oh God, we've gone into weird territory. This was years ago. I think I was in my early 30s. And yeah. I was talking to a nurse. And her and I were talking, we were messing around. And she's supposed to come over to my apartment. And being a single guy, I said, and you know, full of culture. And by culture, I just mean the stuff that my society has dumped at me, blaming my society. I was able to get a, what is that thing called? Oh God, what is the thing called? Oh, Viagra. I was able to get a Viagra off for a guy at work. I bought it from him. He meets me in some parking lot, like we were doing some kind of drug deal. Like this was some kind of like big drug deal going down. And it's like, all right, man, here's this. And he's gone. And I'm like, it's just Viagra, dude. Why are you acting like this is some kind of big drug deal? That's the first point. So she's coming over. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to punish it. I am going to punish it. This is going to be this is going to be epic. And I'm going to be like a porn star. And I'm going to be just grounded in. And it is going to blow her mind. And her vagina is going to have to walk with a crutch. So I take the Viagra. Not because I needed the Viagra, but because I wanted that extra oomph. I wanted the extra oomph, like a player that wanted that extra muscle to throw the ball. And she gets in, and I think it goes for maybe 10 minutes where we're talking and we're just hanging out. Because for me, I never mess with anybody who's not a friend of mine. Meaning, I don't like One night stands I don't like. That she may be nuts, and I don't want her. I don't want to mess with anybody nuts. That's just a precaution on my part. So people tend to be my friends first. So we're sitting, we're talking, and the room starts to spin. And my blood pressure drops. It starts to drop. And I started getting like this horrible fucking headache. And her being a nurse, she's like, "Are you okay?" I say, "Yeah, I'm okay." And it starts getting progressively worse until it gets to the point where I have to be honest with her and I have to tell her what's taking place in this kind of embarrassing moment of, I took a Viagra. I didn't need to, but I took it. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me to explain it. I don't want the indignity of explaining why. But I took a Viagra. You're coming over. You can kind of make the leap of why I would take the Viagra with you coming over. I didn't need it. I took it because, I wanted an extra bit of oomph to punish. And at that point, she thought that was the funniest shit she had ever heard in her life. And it was so fucking embarrassing. Like it was beyond embarrassing. Like the idea of where you have to even like to come forward. It's almost like a movie where the character, after all of his plans and all of his machinations, finally has to be exposed in the light of day, and he has to explain his actions and his level of debasing embarrassment. God, that was so fucking embarrassing. How I Met Your Mom story. Oh, that's funny and bad. Shame on you, sir. I got one off a guy I work with. My girlfriend loved it. Yeah, most people don't care. And when I say punish it, I'm being just massively hyperbolic and talking like a guy. And like I said, for me, if she doesn't have fun, it doesn't do anything for me. So when I'm saying punish it, it's not being real. Like I said, I'm talking like a guy. But that was fucking humiliating. Like, granted, she thought it was funny because to some degree it is funny. It's nothing to take serious. But God, she thought it was fucking hilarious. And at that point, it's like the night is ruined. I'm laid out on the couch. She's the woman who I was going to punish. And had all these machinations. She's now the nurse taking care of me, laughing, thinking all of this is funny, saying, "If you need me, just hit me up." And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to fuck up the night. Jamal's porn name is Punisher. No, my porn name is Butt Naked, but that's a different story. A car doesn't need a turbo, but hey, it doesn't need a turbo, but God does it. Look, I am a product of this society. And I would say this. Women, you should be appreciative of this. All of this was done at this idea of, yes, I want to punish it, but I want to punish it because I want it to be enjoyable for the other person. So, women are like men in many regards. Regardless of the culture that's overlaid on top of them. They love a good raunchy, knocking off like anybody else. So, ribbed for her pleasure. That's right, hey you guy. That's right. At least as good as a Wharf sex episode. That's called fucking rape, Trudy. Okay, it's not rape, but goddamn, that would be a brutal episode. That would be a brutal episode. Can you imagine that shit? Like on planet, let's say you're on planet Earth, and there's this thing of society. Like, we look at this stuff from the lens of a third person, but imagine in real life, this fucking massive Klingon warrior, and you're the doctor, and the woman comes in with a broken arm. Yes, you can fix it. She has scars and scrapes on her face. His arm, he's coming in with a limp. But she's really fucked up. And you've ultimately said, yeah, we were having sex. What do you think of that? Even if you're an open-minded doctor, what it seems like is this big Klingon warrior was beating the shit out of this Earth woman. Even in S&M stuff, you don't break bones, you don't sprain, none of that stuff. A person may be in a, posture or position for a period of time and it may get achy or something to that effect. But for the most part, you let her out. She's not being injured. And in this case, she's being injured. What do you, as the doctor, say in this scenario? Even with an open mind. God damn it. God damn it. Yeah, John Cena and Dax. Yeah. Yeah. Is breaking a bone sexy? Is breaking a bone sexy? I gotta be honest. I am somewhat curious of what takes place in that room, Trudy. Didn't Worf go after ever? Yeah. He hooked up with her too. Well, he didn't go after her, to be fair, Bob. He ends up with her because Ezra Dax goes after him. And she's throwing herself at him. And what is Worf to do? What is he to do? He's a man. He's a man. He's a being. He's a Klingon warrior. What is he to do? She's, take it. And he's like, no, I'm a Klingon warrior. I don't want it. No, I don't want it. And finally he's like, okay, I'll take it. And then he wanted to marry her at that point. They were confused. Yes, they were confused. Exactly, Trudy. And it was tradition and culture wrapped in all the stuff that was fucking them up. There's something to be said for fling. And, they should have had a fling and got it over with. Worf wanted to culturally marry her and whatnot. But yeah, they were confused. They became friends, but they were confused. Worf was not smashing Counselor Troy. I don't believe that. Counselor Troy belonged to Riker. Fucking Counselor Troy. Where's my Counselor Troy? These two. That relationship was fucking eternal. Worf never smashed it. Worf never touched it. Worf never hit it. And how dare you say that, sir? How dare you say that? Joking about bones being sexy is all fun and games. So you accidentally bump a girl off the bed and she breaks her arm. You know what's funny? When I was working at school, one of the women came in, and she was limping. Like she was I can't remember if she had like a cast or something, but she was like really bad off, like barely making it. And we were like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" She says, "Yeah." She says, "Look," she says, "my husband came back from deployment. Either her husband or boyfriend had just got back from being deployed in some far-flung country, and he hadn't had sex in a while. He broke me in." And we're like, wow. Like, wow, A, that you told us. And wow, B, good for you, I think. I mean, she didn't seem all that put off by it. But he was fucking animal. She was injured. Like, she was really injured. God, yeah, she was really injured. Yeah, she was really injured. She was fucking hilarious. Because it is funny, right? Like, it's not violence from the standpoint of I am trying to injure this person. Sex, by its very nature, to some degree, is violent. That's why I think I laugh at tantric sex. Is it really sex? Sex, to some degree, is one person giving up a certain amount of authority to another person. And I always think it's some degree sexy where the person loses a certain amount of agency during the process, especially during the process of an orgasm, in that moment of weakness. I think it's funny to me when it kind of goes too far and the person gets injured. Like you said, the person falls off the bed and it breaks a bone. It's not funny that the bone gets broken. It's funny when you kind of think in your head what took place for that to happen. Yeah, that's just funny. It's just funny. The person below me is looking up porn videos. Oh God, that's hilarious. Elephants on coke. You're looking up porn videos. That's funny. Sex is natural. Sex is fun. It's best when it's one-on-one. Oh, I don't know if it's best if it's one-on-one, but sometimes. The writers forgot that Worf said he could only be with a Klingon woman because he would injure them. Yes, he did. And if you notice, Trudy, he did injure them every time he had sex. Except, what's her name? Ezra. He didn't injure Ezra. But he didn't injure Ezra only because they needed Ezra as a plot device not to be injured. But the other ones, yeah, he injured. He was a fucking abusive husband for all intents and purposes. Has Dor started doing Star Trek sex topics? No, I don't think Dor has. Jamal, Google Worf and Troy. No, I know. That was an alternate reality, buddy. And yes, there were times where there were insinuations. There were insinuations. But the love between Riker and Troy were epic. Epic. Unvarnished by Worf. That's all I'm saying. This was a love that spanned the galaxies, spanned time frames. It was pronounced and epic in its scale and grandeur. And you're trying to blemish this love with Worf. At no point did Worf injure Troy. She never went to the doctor's office for some kind of injury or anything else. And nor did Worf ever ask to marry Troy. Worf was a stickler for his cultural traditions. And in many of the cases, if you've seen it, everybody he's had sex with, he's tried to marry. It's so bizarre. It's very strange, in fact. If Worf puts his penis in you, Worf is going to want to marry you for life. And he gets pretty aggressive trying to do so. All of the women, oddly enough, told him no. Which is even funnier with the exception of Jadzia Dax. Even Klingon women told him no. The woman he even had a kid with was like, yeah, dude, cut that cultural shit out. Just wanted to have my, lawn mowed. Flowers watered. Rose garden plowed. I'm trying to think of euphemisms. Yeah, that was in another future. Will hated Worf because he married Troy because she died in one possible future episode. Yes. Troy and Riker eventually got together. There will be songs sung about the love between Troy and Riker. Kirk was a giant fan of women of colors. Yes, he was, Balthazar. Yes, he was. Oh, God, yes, he was. Yes, he was. The first kiss between a black woman and a white man was James T. Kirk kissing. Oh, God, what is her name? Oh, fuck, what is her name? My black card is going to get revoked if I can't remember this. I can see her. I can totally see her. Lieutenant Uhura. Yeah, Lieutenant Uhura. That was the first kiss between the interracial kiss. Star Trek. First time a black hole was mentioned. Star Trek. And if I'm not mistaken, the second was Kirk kissing a green chick. Kirk kissing the green woman, and having sex with that green woman. Yeah, he was definitely for a woman of color. That is absolutely right, Balthazar. That was absolutely right. She seemed to like that ear tickler thing. Oh God. First woman with a power position. Was it? I don't know if it was. Was it? Yeah, Nicole's. Fred Edwards. Yeah, Kurt was awesome. There's an episode of Black Mirror. One of my favorite episodes. One of the best episodes of The Batch, let me tell it. Where it's this kind of ode to Star Trek. But it is so dystopian. But at the end of it, it's this kind of rah girl power thing that actually works in practice. It's fucking awesome. Alright, I'm going to end this because it's like 4 a.m. Star Trek talk. Star Trek sex talk. I know that's funny. Shatner is the luckiest bastard ever. Who are you telling? Yes, he is. They had to make it a forced kiss. Uhura and Kirk. Yeah, to beef, I know. Ain't that some shit? The third person view of society looking at this, and they still had to make it this good. As if there weren't already interracial couples in our society. Taking it back to the UFO thing for the moment. Betty and Barney Hill. Do you remember this? Betty and Barney Hill was one of the first abduction cases that was recorded. Mixed couple, interracial. And apparently, Barney turned to drinking and didn't necessarily tolerate this well. Betty told the story of what took place. Interracial couple. I'm pretty sure they were having sex. The society kept arguing about this idea of interracial couples and interracial this thing of what's the word for it? The specific word for it? Um, God, I can't think of the name for it. But essentially, blacks and whites intermingling in society, getting rid of this idea of Jim Crow, or getting rid of this idea of separate but equal. Missing the point that society was already integration. Society was already integrated. The only difference was you had some people pretending as if it wasn't true, and pretending as if you could say, you're going to be here, you're going to be here, and everything is going to be separate but equal. It was utter nonsense. It was utter nonsense. And yet they pretended as if it wasn't true. Now in this case, yeah, you're right, Tabitha. They had to have them forced. If I remember in that particular show, it was these beings that had this godlike power that could force the characters of Star Trek to do what they wanted. It was some elixir or something that they were taking and drinking, giving us kind of psi abilities. Yeah, and they forced them to kiss. But still, it took place. William goddamn Shatner. Alright. This video has gone all over the place. Does Q have sex? No, he doesn't need to. I mean, he does if he wants to. And I know that I'm answering that like a boss. But it's Q. He's fucking omnipotent from our perspective. Think of it as if you, as a scientist, did an experiment. Tom Campbell is doing an experiment. And in the experiment, Tom Campbell is determined to figure out whether or not this is a virtual reality simulation. Meaning, is it real? And real in the way that we think of real from the standpoint of this is all there is. It's still real in either case, but he wants to know what is it that we're in, and he's trying to test the limits of the double slit experiment in order to do this. What if Tom Campbell finds out, yeah, this is some level of virtual reality, and that it is being projected from somewhere, and in the somewhere that is being projected, can you interact with it? Can you contort and change it? Can you build technology to interact with that particular system, and what does that technology look like? This is a fundamentally different world at that point. Imagine for the moment that not only could you build technology to interact with it, you can build technology to help you leave it altogether and interact with it with your own terms, existing in this kind of alternate verse that is projecting this particular universe. At that point, what would that look like from the standpoint of existence? Yes, you can interject yourself into this physical matter reality, and what you can do will seem like magic because you yourself would have keys essentially to eternity. Would you have sex anytime you want it? You can make any particular creature that you wanted. One caveat. Just because you can make creatures and just because you can interact with the system doesn't necessarily mean that you can change the things that are within the system. Meaning, doesn't necessarily mean that you can take control over the people that are in the system, only that you can control and create new beings of the system yourself. If you wanted to create a planet, have at it. If you want to do, but changing a person's will, a little different. Now, let's say that you can do it, or let's say that you created a code in which case you prevented people from doing it. There's all sorts of configurations that you can come up with in this scenario. But getting to the point of will Q have sex? Q doesn't have a body. Why would he need to? Now, if he wanted to enjoy it, yeah, he can do whatever he wanted. But otherwise. Alright. Abort you. Jimmy ticking me off. Sick of paying that guy to not put out content. Jimmy not posting much. Guess they on the road, abort, but move over to JT or someone else has said, "Aw, you're always welcome aboard." I don't know how much content Jimmy puts out. I put out a lot only because I think I'm somewhat insecure about the payment arrangement. Meaning, people give super chat, people give Patreon, and I feel like I want to make sure they get what they want. Meaning, when I'm doing shows, I'm hoping I'm putting out enough because I don't assume that they're going to like every show. If it's we hate 50%, great, but we love the other 50%, great. I understand that there are going to be some things people don't necessarily like, but I try to give them enough of a spread where they can pick and choose the things that they like, and they can still feel, yes, the money that I get through Patreon, it's worth whatever, it's worth the content. Because look, I'm appreciative of it. Like, I get to do a show, and in getting to do a show is user driven, user run, and I appreciate it. fucking talk about Star Trek. Granted, I got to do the news because that's what I love to do, but even that was to some degree a choice and what I wanted to do. It's just people accrued around that particular choice. Yeah, I don't know how much content Door puts out, and I don't necessarily know if there's a number that they're associated with. I do this particular way because I think that's, like I said, I think I probably have some insecurity about it, but that shouldn't necessarily cast on Door. Door is fucking amazing. He's phenomenal, but I don't know how much content he puts out. I don't know. Yeah, Ed has been replacing Ed Schultz on RT. Yeah, he has. There's been like a week between contents on Jimmy Dore. You know, the guy's right. He has been replacing Ed Schultz, so I don't necessarily know if he has time for both. One of the things I've said was, if I got a gig on something else, one of the big fears that I have is what's next. Like if, because I always look at this as somewhat insecure. This is a weird phenomenon for me. Transition. I went through, not in a gay way, but not in a boy to girl way, but in a how you view yourself and getting across how strong that is, like how persistent that is, that's driven into you as a society, not because you've done anything or anybody else has done anything. Just, this is the way society goes. This is the current that society takes, and you're part of that particular current, and not even realizing that you're part of that particular current. So you work 8 hours a day. You go to school, you learn a trade, and you use that trade in order to get yourself some level of liberation. Liberation in this case, or freedom, is just access to things. I have access to this, or I have access to that. My degrees of freedom in this particular system are XYZ, and those things are enhanced the more money that I have. And so you're stuck in this thing of, I need to make money. I need to keep my head above the water. Fine. And the way you do it is by doing software. At some point, it gets to the point where you hate it. Completely hate it. Like, slit your wrists, hate it. Like, just completely don't like what you're doing. Now, in my case, I had the fortunate pleasure of also doing a channel and doing a video. And so it was this weird inflection point where it's like there has to be a change, because you can't persist in the way that you're going. But by the same token, do you want to replicate that cycle by getting another software job, in which case you're going to hate? At the exact same time, you're doing this other thing that you love. And it was the weirdest thing in the world, like starting to do this channel and starting to do this channel more. Meaning working 8 hours, then coming back home and doing another 5 hours on videos. Fucking punishing schedule. But I did it because I enjoyed it. That's literally where it began and ended. I used to do a ton of videos because I enjoyed it. My boss at work found out I was doing videos, hated the fact I was doing videos. He's a Clinton supporter. I would imagine if he looked at any of those videos where I was having to go at Clinton, he probably felt some kind of way about it. Fuck him for even bringing it up. But whatever. The thing is, once you get in your head that what work is working 8 hours a day, even when you're not working 8 hours a day, it happens. It hits you. It's like, fuck, is this work? Well, I'm getting money from, X to do X. Yes, it's work, but it's different from the work that I was doing prior. The difference is the thing that makes it difficult to pull off. Even my wife. My wife is working at a virtual environment now, and she finishes at a particular time. And it's not an 8 hour grind anymore. It's, let's say, like 6 hours. And she's like, fuck, man, is this really work? It's like, yes, fuck, it's work. You're getting paid for it. You're doing all the stuff that you're supposed to do. You're just finishing sooner. In which case, you can fuck off for the rest of the day. It's just weird. It's hard to make that conversion. I suspect part of the problem that we as lefties hit is that people get into their head, this is reality. This is what people do. This is what people should do. Well, no. This is not a situation where people should do. People do it because this is what they've used to. This is what they've accustomed to. But what happens when you shouldn't be accustomed to that anymore? Like when you're burning the resources of the planet, using things in a way that you don't necessarily need to use things, but because of the economic system you have, you need to burn through those resources, even though you have finite resources. It's an amazing system. Your world is burning, and people are still fiddling away, doing the same thing. You're giving 95% of your wealth to the top 1%. People still work and do the same thing because it's all they know how to do. They lose their jobs to automation and shipping jobs overseas. And the political system itself, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And of course, you can always support the Patreon. It seems to come back. I don't know what took place. It just flipped. But I was going to end it anyway. Let's see. If Q doesn't have sex, how did Q procreate a child to end the Q civil war? That's a good point. Tim procreated a child. So look, there's a difference between creating a consciousness and creating what I think Q considers just these kind of beings. I think there's a difference. There's one thing when the system itself generates a being versus when Q himself creates a being. In the sense where Q was working in this particular reality frame, he didn't necessarily want to create kind of just a creation where he blinks into existence. I think he makes the distinction between that not being real versus something that's created in a system like a Picard or somebody else. At least I think so. I could be wrong. Because otherwise, why didn't he just blink a kid into existence? You're right. The being that he was working with, that was a Q, if you notice, they did something where they touched fingers and blam, the kid was into existence. Now, what's considered sex between species? It's going to be different. How Vulcans mate versus how human beings mate versus how Cleons mate in the culture and the parade and the theater around those around those things. Well, those are going to be different. Like, and by the way, not right or wrong, good or bad. We compare what we do to what other people did. Pulling hair, slapping ass, or caressing and looking into the person's eyes and all this other stuff. That stuff is neither natural nor unnatural. It just kind of is. It just kind of is. Some people get kicks out of one, other people get kicks out of other. And you have your culture. But I'm making the point, none of it's real per se. None of it's not real. It's just up to the person's interest. But that person's interest is usually just picked up on things that happened in the past and just small, minute changes over time, getting you where you are. Q and the continuum, their way of procreating a kid was essentially touching fingers. Now, to be fair, we don't know if that's their way, by the way. All we know is that's how it perceives to us in this reality space. What Q showed Janeway and her crew when they went into the continuum was somewhat of an illusion to give them some understanding of what was taking place. What was actually taking place was beyond the comprehension of the human beings that were involved in the process. It's possible, and it's most likely that what took place when they were touching fingers was the same. They did something to procreate, but we don't exactly know what that something is. Stop microphone abuse. All right. We've gone into the boonies like nobody's business. We've gone totally into the boonies. And Winky the Bernie bro, I meant to hit you up today. I listened to our video again. Oh God, it's so fucking hilarious. I was in the bath. I was in the shower, laughing hilariously at that video. I knew what was coming up, and it was still fucking phenomenally funny to me. Guys, Winky was the voice of the Texan in that video. He was the one who was essentially saying, he was terrified of the illegal aliens coming to get him. So, good fucking job, Winky. Good fucking job. I love that video. I laughed my ass off so hard in that video. Well, I hate to say that it's not the answer everybody wants to hear, but taking shit back with force might be the only option. Winkle. I'm sorry, Winkle. I always call you Winky. It's Winkle. Oh, Winkle. Oh, Winkle. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Winkle. I'm sorry. I thought your name was Winkle, and for whatever reason, I thought it was... This is going to sound weird. When I was writing stuff down, I was like... I thought it was Winkle. I thought it was Winkle. And then, for whatever reason, I looked back, and it was Winky. And so I started saying... Winky, instead of Winkle, based on a false memory I'm sorry. Long story short, it's Winkle. Winkle the Bernie Bro. That channel is fucking phenomenal. And that call-in was hilarious. Call-in was completely hilarious. Just don't call him an asshole. No, he's fucking funny. Yeah. I'm in this here. Especially when the Nicaragua events are heating up. Yeah, Nicaragua. Did Q only show himself to Picard and Janeway? No, Riker, Worf, all of them. Data, all of them knew of his existence. Guinan. No. Did you see JD and McAfee get cut off on RT? To be fair, I saw that, I thought it was you that posted something. You said, what happened after 12 minutes? I looked at the 12 minutes. I didn't see what was going on. Did you see Jimmy Dore and McAfee get cut off on RT? I didn't see what... I'm going to have to look at that video again. So yeah, I check it again. Jimmy Dore and McAfee, that is crazy, dude. Whoa, yeah, I got to check that again. Because I saw the video and I didn't fully understand what was going on. It looked like they went to commercial or something, but... 2 shows, though. If you could fight over the 5. I think the people in the room would restrain that person and they would divvy up the slices in the way they needed to divvy up the slices. This planet is odd. None of the stuff that we come up with as agreements are necessarily real. What's real is a person, and what's real are the resources on the planet and the things that are needed for the people in order to persist themselves on the planet. A system has been derived and came up with that gave 95% of the spoils to the top 1%. And really, it's not even the top 1%, it's like the top 0.1%. Think about what's taking place here. All of your resources essentially being hoarded and given to a small minority of people. You have people without toilets, you have people living on the streets, you have people taking dumps on the streets. Is this really what you want your society to be? And what do you think those people would do living on the streets without making ends meet? Without or barely making ends meet on this kind of hamster wheel where they're working 50, 60 hours a week, where they can't afford to get sick, where they have a kid that they can't afford for that kid to get sick or anything to go wrong, where their families are under constant and perpetual stress just based on the system the way it is. If the car breaks down, if somebody gets ill, if somebody dies, if anything happens, it's going to throw that family into a quagmire. Why do we want our society to be persistently under stress in this way? And what do you think would be the consequences of a society when it puts people persistently under stress in this way? Do you think people would pop? Do you think they would show abnormalities and aberrant behavior in a society that's under perpetual and consistent stress in this way? The secondary question is, does it need to be that way? And the answer, of course, is no. It doesn't need to be that way. I've said nothing about capitalism, socialism, any of that stuff. The problem, to some degree, I think, is capitalism, because I think it's that profit motive that's at the kernel, this kind of competitive thing that's built into the way we organize ourselves and interact with each other. Also, to some degree, this totalitarian system of corporations, where the societal benefit or the societal need matters less than their ability to make profit. We've created certain incentive structures that are antagonistic to the system itself, and even antagonistic to life on Earth. So yeah, things need to change. We need to reorganize ourselves, or at the very least organize ourselves in a way that is not antagonistic to life on Earth. It's insane to me, and I don't even know an honest justification that can be made. If you were explaining to an alien why 4 or 5 people have as much wealth as 70% of the people on the planet, I don't know if they would make sense to them. Well, we have this system called capitalism where they're able to hoard billions in the bank. Can anybody touch that? No, it just sits there. So wait a minute, you have people who are hungry and starving and living on the streets? Yes. And you have other people with billions in the bank not doing anything? Yes. Why don't those people who are starving get access to the food they need? They don't have the money. But money's not real. I know. How do you explain that? We have a system of agreements, and in those agreements, it's perfectly okay for those people to live on the street while others have 3, 4 houses. How do you explain it? How do you justify that? Who gave the first man something? Like, who owned it first? Everything that's had was taken through blood. It's like the purse robber turning around saying, well, I stole the purse, so I got the purse, so now I can keep the money in the purse. Fuck off. But that's what we do. That's what we do. The most violent people we allow to keep what they've caught. So yeah. All right. I'm gonna end this. Yeah, I'm gonna end this. All right, guys. If you enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. And guys, thanks everyone that helped with the channel. Winky, Beltazar, you always help. I appreciate it. Liam, Hiss, Jesus Christ, thank you, Liam. Red Economics. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a decent night, whatever remains of it. It's 4:20. 4:20 what? Fucking it. Thanks, guys.